What's up, y'all? It's Anisha, and my mandate is to equip, encourage, empower, inspire, and ignite women to influence and impact their world, all for the glory of God. I am a wife, a mom, a ministry leader, a corporate IT leader by day, and a business owner and founder by night. I love all things Jesus, business, and letting my creative juices and imagination run wild. If you have found yourself here, I want you to go ahead, pull up a seat, because this is the PowHerhouse Podcast. Oh my goodness, I have an amazing special guest for us on today's episode. Her name is Allison Elliott. I had the pleasure of meeting her on social media. You know, I think some people have issues with social media and they think it's just the worst thing ever and it's just not good for people. But honestly, through social media, I've come into contact with so many amazing men and women, and this is one that I got to meet. So let me introduce you guys to her, because first of all, she is a daughter of God. You all know that God reigns here, right? Jesus reigns here. So she is a daughter of God. She is married. She is studying to get her clinical doctorate in East Asian medicine. She has been raised a pastor's daughter, y'all, AKA a PK. And y'all know what we have all heard about PKs, but I love her. I love her heart. I love the conversations that we have had. So I'm excited to just hear her perspectives on some things, because she was raised as a pastor's daughter. She's also a podcaster, a blogger. And this is one of the things I love. We were talking about this earlier, is that she loves taking walks with her animals. And y'all, she got 40 of them, okay? Not one, not two, not three. 40 animals. So she goes into the pastures with them, and I love that. So please, you guys, help me welcome Miss Allison. Hello, girl. What is up?
Hey, so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm already excited about this episode because, one, as soon as you share that you love taking walks in the pasture with your animals, man, it immediately brought me back to my childhood, where I would just go into the fields and just really be by myself with the nature and the plants and the vegetables that we were growing. Man, I just love that. So how often do you typically go out there with your animals?
Not often enough. I really should go out way more, just because it's so refreshing. And I feel as though there's nothing more rejuvenating, because I have sheep primarily. So walking amongst sheep, there's just something about it that feels so revitalizing. And it's been interesting because having the sheep, it's really helped me come to understand so many passages and so many stories in the Bible, like I never understood them before. And oftentimes when I've gotten to a place where I feel overwhelmed or just a little too stressed out, I just have a moment where I'm like, I got to go walk amongst the sheep. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'll do. I'll just go out there and just walk around. And it's just so refreshing to the soul and the spirit.
That's amazing. I don't even know what life is like having sheep. I can only imagine what it might be like, but it sounds so great to be able to look into the Bible, right? And you see all of the passages that refer to sheep in some way, shape, or form, and to really bring that to life, because you literally have sheep that you can actually see what the Bible is talking about. So that's pretty cool. Today, I want us to talk about purpose. From what I've seen, many people have different views on what purpose is and what calling is and how their passions integrate into that. So I want to ask, what is your view or understanding of purpose and calling?
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, so much, because I think so many people do search for purpose. And when I was a child, I think we all hear it when we're kids. I had someone say, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I think I gave him a very generic answer, although in hindsight, it probably was very insightful because I'm pretty sure I always said I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a doctor. Those were my two go-to answers. And they said to me, like, you can be anything you want to be. You don't have to have it figured out yet. And a couple of days later, I went and I talked to my dad and I was like, Dad, someone said I can be anything I want to be when I grow up. And I just remember he just took a moment and he paused with me and he said, no, you can't. He said, but you can be anything that you have been called to be.
Ooh.
And I have carried that with me since I was a child, because I believe that we are seeing a generation who is trying to be anything and everything. And what happens when you try to be anything is that out of fear of not doing your thing, you try to do everything. And we're seeing a burnout generation because we're trying to do everything because we're so afraid of missing the calling of God in our lives that we're missing it.
Yep.
And so there are a few things that I've learned about this. One is that we use the word purpose a lot because it's very universal. And I think a lot of people understand it. The problem that I find with this is that sometimes your purpose in life is bigger than your lifetime.
Ooh, girl.
Sometimes your purpose in life is bigger than your lifetime. And so because of that, you can live your entire life walking with God and following your calling and never see what your purpose in life is. But we've convinced ourselves that we have to know our purpose in order to fulfill our calling. And so we're walking around feeling real lost. So that's purpose. I have come to peace with the fact that I may never know my purpose, but the chances of you being born are so slim. Like they've done the numbers. It's basically zero. So I believe that you were born for a purpose. It's okay to not know what it is. So I've come to peace that I might never know what my purpose is. I'm okay with that. I do, however, strongly believe that we are given callings by God in our lifetimes, and that there are life callings and that there are seasonal callings. And I think we overcomplicate it because if you just simply will answer and step into your seasonal calling, everything else will fall into place.
I so love this already, loving it already, because our purpose may not be revealed in our lifetime. It might expand even further than that. And one of the things that came to mind, or the accounts in the Bible that came to mind, was Jael, and she killed Sisera. When that opportunity came, she knew that that was her assignment. And we see her account in the Bible. She would have never probably thought that her story, that one thing that she did, would carry centuries, thousands of years later. And here we are still reading about that valiant act that she did so long ago. So I love that view of purpose. I promise you, I have never heard that before. Your dad is indeed a very wise man for sharing that with you at such a young age. Yeah. I think even me, I have to tone it back sometimes because I tend to want to do all the things. And God and my best friend are consistently telling me, you cannot do everything. Just because you have the idea, just because you have the passion, just because you have the thought, doesn't mean that you have to be the one to carry it out. Sometimes other people may be carrying out a thing that you feel very passionate about, and it's okay. You can help them in other ways, but you don't have to take on everything. Hello, guys. Guess what? These PowHerhouse Academy doors are officially opened after months of gathering more resources, more tools, more insights. We are finally ready to open the doors to our newest cohort of Academy students. We have been waiting for you. I am so excited to pour out all that God has for you inside of this Academy. Not only will you get the influx of the courses and the classes that we already have in the membership, but we have added some new courses. We've added some new bonus materials. Like, if you want to create a course, community, or digital product, PowHerhouse Academy is absolutely unequivocally the place that you need to be. So head to anitafaber.com/academy and you will find all other details there. I cannot wait to see you in class.
Yeah, I truly believe that your calling, and I would even say your purpose, which may not be as clear, but you carry it within you, right? So whatever you're called to do, God equips you to do. He uses your personality and your skill sets, like your zone of genius. So I always say your personality is not a mistake. God gave you your personality for a purpose. Now, maybe there are some things about your personality that are learned traits, but your personality, your purpose, those things are so intimately tied together that you carry that within you. And so I think for me, from a very young age, I would see certain things. Just it was like a knowing inside. Like I'd see myself doing certain things. And as a kid, I always thought that the older, more mature, more confident version of myself would be the kind of person that fulfilled it. But that maybe at the time I wasn't the kind of person. There's even things now that I see myself doing, like who I am today, can't do this. And I use that as a guidepost for what action steps I need to take to get to where I feel called to. But so there's certain things that I've always seen, and I think I've always known, but over the years, God has revealed more and more of it to me. And so as far as like lifetime callings go, or life callings, maybe I don't always have a super clear picture of what that is, but I almost always know what I'm being called to in a season. And so I just will follow that. And usually I'll get a next seasonal assignment when I've finished, when God has said, you've finished this one. And sometimes finishing it doesn't mean that you did it well. Like maybe you can come to the end and you haven't done what you were supposed to do in that, but that's when he'll often speak to me, or I'll just know what the next steps are. So I've learned to be at peace with not knowing the whole picture and just simply knowing what he's calling me to do in this season. I even stopped making more than 3-year plans because I think that's trying to put a level of control over my life that is unnecessary if I'm choosing to answer each seasonal calling. Because what my life looks like today looks completely different than 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Agreed, 100%. As you were just talking, one of the things that really stood out to me was this concept of seasonal callings. I think we don't give enough attention to that particular concept because we tend to think everything God gives us, he gives it to us for a lifetime. And in actuality, it could just be for a season. It could just be for that 3 months. It could just be for that year. It could just be for that 1 week that God really has you doing this one particular thing. And after that week is up, he's like, okay, that's it. We're moving on. And I think that's just really helpful for every single listener. Like everything about what you do doesn't have to span a lifetime. Everything that you believe God is calling you to do doesn't have to span 10, 12, 15, 18 years. It could span a month. It could be just for 3 months. It's okay if that's the case. So how does our passion, like what are your thoughts on how our passions tie into our calling?
Yeah. So I don't want to say like controversial opinion on this, but I believe that too often we try to make our passion our purpose. So especially in this day and age where we are, I want to say like penny pinching our minutes, we feel like we can't just do something for the enjoyment of doing it. That we have to make it mean something. Like if you want to have a hobby, if you want to do something you're passionate about, that you have to make it mean something. And then we've stopped giving ourselves permission to do that thing for enjoyment and for rest. And so I guess when I think about passion, I think about it in 2 different ways. There's the passion that comes naturally with whatever you are called to do. So oftentimes when we truly feel called to do something, we are very passionate about it. But then there are certain things that we just have a passion for. And I believe that God gives us those things for the enjoyment of life, because nowhere in the Bible does he really say, like, yes, there are, there's trials and tribulations, but there's nowhere where he says you're going to be miserable your whole life, that you're not going to get to enjoy yourself. And so differentiating between I am passionate about this and I have a passion for this is very helpful. So I have a passion for this is often tied to what you're called to do. I'm passionate about this. Like, I enjoy this. I love this thing. I think those things we need to give ourselves permission to not make our purpose and to instead just find time for those things, to enjoy those things. I think a good example is like ice skating or painting or something. You can be really passionate about those things, but you don't have to make that your purpose in life.
That's a really good perspective on passions, because so many people, I know you've heard this many times, if you find your passion, you found your calling. And it's like, okay, well, what if you have a whole bunch of passions? Like, are all of those going to be your calling? No. I remember it was a while ago, and I went through this season of my life where I loved baking, and I still will bake, but not as much because I also have a sweet tooth. So for me, baking is not a good thing because I'm the only one who would probably eat most of the sweets in my house. But I went through this season and I loved baking. I took baking classes, like to do cake decorating and everything. And me and my best friend at the time, we thought it was going to be a good idea to go into business together to do baking, right? I promise you, I quickly realized that I was definitely passionate about baking, but I was not trying to make baking something that I do for a living. It took all of the joy out of it. It was so stressful. It was time consuming. I just did not enjoy baking for profit. It just was not for me. And so I understood at that point, everything I'm passionate about, I don't have to make it something that I'm doing in life. It can just be that I just enjoy doing it, and that's okay.
Yes, I love that. It's so true. I think we all find that at some point where we have something we're so passionate about, and we want to spend so much time doing it that we either feel like we want to make it mean something. But yeah, just learning to let it just mean that you enjoy doing that thing is really great. During my undergrad, I got my bachelor's in international business and supply chain management. And while I was doing that, I went to University of Maryland. While I was there, they brought in the CEO of Honest Teas. Have you heard of that company?
Yes.
They brought in the CEO of Honest Teas to speak to us. And someone asked him the question, like, how did you know that Honest Teas was it? Because he had a lot of people say that his idea was just stupid, that he shouldn't do it, would never be profitable. And he said he knew because he just couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, it just was something that he would lay in bed at night and he would think about it, and he would get up and he would think about it. And it was one of those things where if he hadn't have done it, he would have regretted it. He always would have wondered, what if? Yeah. And that's something that I've thought about a lot too. So there's some things where I'm like, oh, I really want to get back to this thing because I enjoy doing it so much, but it doesn't necessarily keep me up at night.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I will use for myself. It's like, does this thing keep me up at night, or am I just, I want a rest. I want to take a rest from what I'm doing. And what I find restful is to go and do the baking or the painting, whatever that thing is. So that's been a helpful way for me to frame it as well.
Right. That's good. So I saw on your podcast, From Within, you have episode, it's your latest episode at the time of this recording. It says how to quiet other people's opinions. And when I was listening to it, one of the things that stuck out to me, because I have experience with this as well, is that sometimes other people's opinions are shaped from their own insecurities. And I loved how, even about that particular section, you were saying you had to ask yourself, okay, where is this opinion from this person coming from? Is it coming from their own insecurities? And sometimes other people's opinions may actually be sourced from God, right? God may have given them something, or whatever the case may be, right? But what I have found is that, especially when it's some type of a negative opinion that is not coming necessarily from the Lord, is coming from their own insecurities, what they would do or what they wouldn't do. And then they try to project that onto us. So I guess just kind of share with the listeners maybe some thoughts or some views around other people's opinions.
Yeah. Years ago, I went through something and I had to realize that most people have good intentions and bad methods. And what I mean by that is that the majority of people are not out to get you. They're not out to hurt you. They have really good intentions. They just don't go about communicating what they're trying to say in a way that either you're used to or that has the same kind of meaning to you as it does to them. And so I've found that happens a lot with people's opinions where they disagree with something that you're going to go do, because everyone always puts themselves in another person's shoes, right? Like even you always actually do see yourself in someone else. Like you watch a movie and you're like, oh, how would I react? What if I was that main character? Right. What would I do? Right. And so we tend to do this with each other's lives. And so oftentimes I've found that for me, when I encounter someone who has a negative opinion about something, it's really insecurities of their own because they're putting themselves in my shoes. And so an example of this is that when my husband and I went to buy our homestead, we had a surprising amount of people that we really thought were going to be very supportive, not be supportive. And instead of saying, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I'm so happy for you, we got a lot of doubt and fear. And it was, well, I'm not so sure about this. I wouldn't do this. Hey, what if this happens? What if that happens? We had to realize that it was not that they really thought we shouldn't do it. It's that they themselves were afraid to do what we were about to do, because the exact same people would say, this is the dream. This is what I'm working towards. And exactly, like the amount of people, I hear it almost daily. This is the dream. And it's like, well, you could go do this. And instantly every person, not every person, but a good portion of them are like, oh no, I couldn't. And so to just realize that most of the time when people have what appears to be negative opinions, oftentimes it's their own fear and insecurities that they are projecting onto you. And so one of the things I've had to learn to ask myself is, okay, is this person, are they saying these things out of fear and insecurity, or are they saying these things out of experience? Because nobody else who's ever done the things that I want to do, if they've already done them, I've found that they never judge, but they will guide.
Yes.
And so I just had to ask myself, have they already done it? And if they have, did they have an outcome that I want? Or are they very familiar with someone else's situation who's done what I want to do and has already had the outcome that I want to have?
That's really good. I love that, because we all are going to be faced with other people's opinions. We've been facing them since we've been born, right? From the time that we understood that there were other people in this world and we had conversations, we always have to combat other people's opinions about certain things. So I knew that this particular topic was definitely going to have space here in this episode, because we all battle it. And I think just understanding people, and I love how you said it, that people have good intentions, but maybe bad methods. So I think that was helpful. Yeah. Man, this has been an amazing conversation. I love all of the topics and the answers, and just the dialogue, really, just about purpose and calling and other people's opinions and passions. I think this was super helpful, and I would love to have you back. I know I always say this, but listen, because the conversations are always so good. They're always so good and juicy. I always leave with nuggets that I can apply even in my own life. So thank you so much. Before we end, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Allison Sue Elliott. And then you can also find my blog at Allison Sue Elliott and my podcast, From Within.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights on the PowHerhouse Podcast. And you guys, this is all that we have for today. I will see you guys next time. Peace.